Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this channel. In today's video we're customizing a custom controller once again, and this time around we're going to do an American flag, but we're going to distress the American flag towards the end, so make sure you stay tuned because that's going to be a cool process. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, we're going to start off with sanding off the controller, and we're going to do that using my little homemade tool there with the electrical toothbrush, and simply putting a little piece of sandpaper on there. And we're just going to go all the way around and try to get as much as the shine off of the controller. I've had instances where the paint comes off, so the more projects that I do, I'm applying a little bit more time to the sanding process. This way I ensure that everything is nice and sanded. I'm using 400 grit sandpaper, but you can play around with a little bit higher or lower grade depending on the material that you're using. And of course you always want to sand any type of project before painting it. Now I'm doing a dry sand, but you can use a little bit of water if you wish. The toothbrush is waterproof, and so is the sandpaper. So if you see that the material is clogging up your sandpaper, you can use a little bit of water, and it'll help you sand a little bit better. I'm using vinyl stencil, and I'm creating the design in Illustrator, and I'm doing this process as much as I can when I paint or do any type of painting, because it helps me create the design sharper and quicker, and then this way I can move on to another project. Try to use a vinyl that has low sticky or like a very low quality glue. This way it doesn't stick on your actual product and peel off the paint that you're painting. Whenever I paint large areas, I always use a little cup to make more paint. This way I have extra paint and I don't run out, because if I'm using the little cups, obviously the paint may not match if you're constantly making that. I'm not going to paint the blue completely solid. I'm going to give it a little bit of a fade here and there, and I'm going to be using two different blues to give it more of a 3D look. Okay, now that the blue is sprayed, I'm gonna try to remove the stencil as quickly as I can. This way the paint doesn't dry and the vinyl or the stencil dries with the paint, because then once you peel that off, you're gonna have a rough edge. So now we're going to spray red, and I want to cover the white stripes. So using the vinyl strips that I made, I'm just going around the controller and applying each individual strip, which will create the white areas, which is already applied on the controller now. So you can use a little bit of heat and or a little bit of pressure and pulling the vinyl, because it does stretch a little bit, if that helps you out. If not, you may have a little crease here and there, but you know, going back there and refinishing that little area where it kind of lifted or didn't bend properly, you can do that with a little brush and go back there and repair it. So when applying the red, I'm using the same process as the blue. I'm going to be applying a little light red here and there, and then going back with a darker red and applying a little bit of shadows just to make it look more interesting and more worn out. So that's what I'm doing there, and once I'm done, I'm just going to go ahead and peel out the stencil and continue with the rest. If you have a little bit of hard time getting rid of the or pulling the initial corner of your vinyl or your stencil, you can always use a tweezer, or I'm using a leftover kind of old needle from an airbrush. So see, sometimes it's kind of hard to get it out from the corners, so you can kind of use those tools to help you out and peel that stencil. Alright, and we're almost done with the base layer. As you can see, there's a little bit of overspray in the red and lightly on the blue, and some got in the white stripes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back in here and repair it with a little brush and try to make those lines as clean as possible. Obviously we're going to distress it, but we want to make sure it looks nice and perfect before we actually distress it. So turns out pretty good. So let's go ahead and clean up the edges with a regular brush and just giving it a few layers, and we should be good to go. So when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of home improvement shows, and I can't remember what show it was, but they would show how to distress furniture and stuff like that. So they use a variety of different techniques to do it, and one of them was to use a super dry brush, meaning you know, you have a little bit of paint on there, And essentially what you're doing is you're just kind of brushing very minimal paint on the actual item, which gives it the kind of like a dirty look, I guess, and used look and distressed. So I'm going to use that technique first, and then we'll move on to the other techniques. So as you can see, I'm loading up the brush very minimal, and on top of that I'm using a regular piece of paper to even dry it even more. So you want it as dry as possible, this way you can get different levels or different shades of black. The next technique is going to be resanding what I've already painted, which kind of sounds weird, but using a little piece of sandpaper, I'm going in there and try to, I guess, wear down the paint in certain areas. So especially on the edges, if you see on there on the blue, the majority of any type of product or material, when it gets used a lot, normally the edges are the first ones to go. So I'm kind of finding those areas where I want to bring back a little bit of the white to make it look more distressed and old. So in order for me to be able to get the small, very light scratches, I'm going to be using an old needle from an old airbrush. You can probably use a paper clip or something sharp, and just going back and forth, you're essentially scratching the surface of the item and trying to make it distress. So I'm going to be going back and forth using those 3 techniques and try to balance out the distress in the overall controller. This way it doesn't look too heavy on one side and so forth. So I'll be doing that all the way around. Alright, we're almost to the end. I decided to bring out a coarser sandpaper, and this way I can get a variety of different looks and scratches. So I'm using a, I think that's an 80 grit sandpaper, and just going around and evenly distressing it. And I'm kind of going opposite of some of the scratches that I've already done. This way it looks more interesting and they're not all going the same direction. So let's go ahead and take a look at the final painting and the finish. So let's go ahead and check that out, and then after that we will check out the final assembly of the controller and take a look how that looks. Alright, and there you guys have it. I think it looks really nice. The distress came out very nice and evenly in the entire controller. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Alright, and thanks for sticking to the end. Let me know what you guys think of the distress look and the final painting. So I think it came out really nice, and the photos speak for themselves. The client had a particular process done for his weapon, so that looks really nice as well, and they both match. So he's gonna be a happy camper. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take it easy for now. Bye bye.